welcome from across the world where most everyone's snowed in or is raining right now. And this is the perfect day to think to yourself, I want to know what's coming out this week in comic books so I can find something to curl up next to the fire and read, tear through, memorize, practice my drawing, all those things you do when you want to be inside instead of outside. And as always, Talking Shop is bringing you cool upcoming projects that are either coming out this week or very soon. And we love to talk to the creators of these projects so we can get the skinny on what we should know and why the things are so cool. Today's episode is exceptionally awesome because we have Jim Valentino with us.
Hi, Mom.
All the way from Portland.
Yeah.
Where he is not experiencing rain or snow.
No, it's just cloudy and kind of overcast, which is cool.
Absolutely. So have you always lived in Portland, or is this?
Oh God, no. I moved here about 12 years ago from Southern California, but I was born in the Bronx. So, yeah.
Oh wow, you've gone to all the coasts.
Oh yeah. I'm a coastal person.
Have you ever lived anywhere else that was interesting that you loved?
Denver.
Oh, Denver. Oh wow. That is a beautiful place. You've lived all the beautiful places. Do you pick places based on where you're going to work?
Well, yeah, I'm an indoor cat, so it's like I love to look out the window, and see green stuff. I don't go near it because I'm afraid of it, but I like seeing it.
So did you start right away into comic books, or did you have another career that existed before?
Oh God, I had tons of careers. I couldn't get arrested. Yeah, of course. Well, jobs. I had tons of jobs, but no, I did not start right in. It took forever. It took me all that time to build up enough money to bribe people, and then I got into comics. It was great.
So were any of the other things that you did before, were any of them related to comic books?
I worked in animation for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on shows like The Real Ghostbusters and a bunch of them that I thankfully forget. So, yeah, but I worked there for about a year.
No, that is super awesome because there are a lot of people that were raised on Real Ghostbusters. So
yeah,
I'm sure we've got viewers right now that are just squealing their brains out like, what? I did not know that. So what did you get to do? What was your
my job?
Mm-hmm.
I was a storyboarder. I did storyboards almost from the time I was first hired. I did storyboards. They had me do cleanup at first when I worked for Marvel Productions, and I think it was my first or second day. I literally bumped into Stan Lee, and he dropped all the papers he was carrying and stuff. Yeah, just my luck. Yeah, I did storyboards like almost from the start. They set me out in front of Alex Nino's office and told me I had to clean him up, and I said, "Okay, well then I quit. I can't clean up Alex Nino." So then they said, "Well, here, try this." So it worked out okay.
That's hilarious. So why did you start with autobiographical topics? Because all of your
earlier stuff
seems autobiographical.
Well, a lot of it has to do with my age. Okay, I'm 742. No, I was born in 1952. So in 1962 was the beginning of the Marvel age and the Silver Age of DC. So all of those books influenced me enormously. I was an avid comic book reader when I was a kid. Okay. And then in 1972, I was 20 years old. So that's time for the underground comics. So as equally as I'm influenced by Jack Kirby or Steve Ditko, I'm influenced by Vaughn Bodie and Robert Crumb and all of those guys. Okay. So now jump to 82, and these more mainstream or more middle comics were coming out. I don't know, forget what they're called, alternative comics.
There you go.
So I was influenced and within a peer group with people like Scott McCloud and Dave Sim and all of those people. So the early comics that I did are sort of a mishmash of all of those things, and they still are. So, you know.
That's amazing. So, okay, so 1980s brought you to Marvel. So what drew
No,
you?
1990s, I think.
Was it 90s?
Was it?
The
No,
web-
it must have been 80s,
the
but the very
website.
end of the 80s. Yeah, very end of the 80s. I only
What
worked
drew
at
you
Marvel
there?
for a few years.
Was someone else? Did someone else work there that drew you in, or did you just decide you wanted to? I want to work here, and I'm going to.
Actually, what happened was I had done a couple of things. Craig Anderson was an editor there, and he needed somebody to fill in on Savage Sword of Conan. I think it was a King Cole story, and I don't remember who wrote it, but I drew it. And then I wrote a Red Sonja story, and I don't remember who drew it. Somebody else drew it. So I was doing piecemeal here and there, okay, different things, what if and stuff like that. And they'd call me if they needed something done really fast. So Rob and I were going up to WonderCon in Oakland. And he was just coming off of Hawk and Dove. And he was looking to go up to get a job at Marvel because Mark Grunwald and Tom DeFalco were there. So I'd prepared a bunch of pitches, including one that he and I were going to do together called The Young Avengers, which was basically Marvel's version of the Teen Titans. So I talked with Tom DeFalco and Mark Grunwald, and Tom said, well, we're doing this. Doing what? He goes, the Teen Titans. He says, except we're calling them the New Warriors, but it's basically the same group, which made perfect sense because Teen Titans was very popular, you know, at the time, George and Marv's Teen Titans. And, you know, Marvel had all these characters, and we just said, let's put them all together. You know, what the hell? Our pitch was a bit different than the New Warriors, and there were a couple of characters that we didn't use, obviously, but they were pretty close. So then I pitched the last one I pitched, or the last one I wrote, which I wrote like a day or two before the convention, before we drove up there. I think we drove up there. Was Guardians of the Galaxy. And I remember calling Rob up and saying, what do you think of the Guardians of the Galaxy? And he goes, well, I think they're cool, but they don't have a story, but they look cool. So I had to think about, okay, what do I do? So it literally hit me as I was heading to the bathroom at midnight or something like that. Why not do a story based on the Marvel Universe 1,000 years in the future? What happened? Who survived? All that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it became sort of an ongoing what if story because nobody bugged me. I got told no twice. I wanted to use Wolverine in one of the stories, but Bob Harris told me no. He said that they didn't want to admit that Wolverine could live for 1,000 years. And I went, okay, that's fair enough. You know, that's okay. The other one was I hated Starhawk, who was the most popular character, and of course I hated him. And I wanted to change his name from Starhawk to Shadowhawk, and Tom said, "No, but that's a cool name. Why don't you make a new character?" Okay, Tom. So I did. So there you go.
Shadowhawk was such a popular title. I mean, I came up in comic books in '92. And I remember how popular those beautiful black and gold and white covers were, just striking.
Yeah, that was one thing. They weren't multiple covers. They were just the cover of the book. And I tried to do things that nobody else was doing. Everybody else was doing a regular drawing and then putting a foil thing or something behind it. And I was like, no, we can do better than that. We can have some fun with this. So the most difficult one, I think, was Shadowhawk 2 number 3 or number 2. Anyways, it was the one that folded up. And I was having dinner, I think, with the printers. And I said, here's my idea. And I did it with a napkin. And they looked at it and they said, how do we do that? And I said, well, you just die cut it this way. And they looked at it and went, yeah, that works. So, it's like I was inventing new things that nobody else had done. So I thought it was okay. Anyways, it was a way for me to compete with the likes of Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Todd McFarlane, Mark Silvestri. It's like, how do I compete with these guys? Well, I'll do weird covers that, that'll work.
So how did you get drawn away from Marvel and into the Image crew? Since you're one of the founding members.
It's in the book.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, there's so many things. Like, I know there's a really awesome documentary. I think it's Netflix that has it, which is wonderful.
There's a couple of them. The funny thing is the guys who were filming the documentary, they asked me the origin of Image Comics. And so I told them, and they said, every single one of you says the same story except for one. And I went, oh yeah, Todd. Just like, yeah.
Does Todd make up his own?
Oh, well, Todd's the center of the universe. Just ask him; he'll tell you. When you walk past him, you got to say, "Todd bless you, Todd bless you." Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
It's okay. He can take it.
This is true. He's a grown up. All right.
What happened was, and it's explained in the book in more detail, but basically what happened is Rob decided he wanted to do an independent comic of his own called The Executioners. And he went to Malibu, and we knew the guys there, Dave Olbrich and those guys. And they put out an ad in the CBG, Comics Buyer's Guide, which was the newspaper of the day. And got an early morning phone call from Bob Harris telling him that he couldn't trade off of the X franchise. And if he published this book, he'd never work in this town again, which was supposed to scare Rob, but it just pissed him off.
But he was only like 25, right? He was too young to know to be scared.
Yeah. No, I think he was like 22, something like that. So he was like, I don't care. So he started talking to the three people that he felt most comfortable with in the industry. And that was Todd, who was retired at the time, and Eric Larson, and me. And Rob and I shared studios off and on and off and on. So I said, I wasn't on a million-selling book, and I wasn't a millionaire, and I had kids and responsibilities. So it was a big step for me, So Eric signed on right away. Second he heard about it, Eric was like, yep, I'm in. Because Eric's Eric. And Todd held off and held off and held off. Finally, they were going to New York together for the Sotheby's auction. Okay. It was the first comic book auction that Sotheby's did. And they were auctioning off X-Men #1, Spider-Man #1, and X-Force #1. So
the book or the art?
The books, the art.
Okay.
So I get this phone call from Todd, and he goes, are you in or not? I got Eric in my one back pocket. I want Jimmy Valentino in the other. Are you in? I'm like, are you going to do this? He goes, yeah. I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. You're not going to back out on us? Nope. Okay, I'm in. And then I had to go home and tell my wife.
So where did the seed money come from? Did you guys just all?
We all put in. Yeah, we all put in a serious amount of money to get it going. And that first year we were with Malibu because we didn't have any infrastructure, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, and they got 10% of the gross for each book. They made bank that year, let me tell you. And then after a year, we were ready to go out on our own, and we did, and we incorporated.
Did you guys naturally fall into specific roles, or did some of you have to take on roles that weren't your joy but had to be filled?
No. We just sort of flew by the seat of our pants. We had no idea what we were doing. I think Eric Stevenson says in his introduction that it happened more from happenstance than anything else, than an actual plan. So, yeah, no. I do remember a meeting with Bill Shanis from Diamond and at San Diego in 1992. And Bill was like, you guys are at the forefront of the industry. And Todd said, man, if we're at the forefront in the industry, you guys are screwed. It's like we're the biggest screw ups ever. And
was it a scary feeling to have so much success just out the gate?
It was pretty heady. I mean, it was very heady. We were being written up in all kinds of magazines. We were on CNN and places like that. We were, in Forbes. I mean, just all this stuff that just, I don't think any other comic had ever been through. Certainly no comic book company had ever been through. So it was pretty heady, but, at the same time, we were being pulled in all these different directions. So infamously, especially at the beginning, we all got tagged with the notion that we couldn't keep a deadline. And yet, if you look at it, the way it worked was there were 3 guys who did group books and who had studios with lots of people in them. They were constantly late. There were 3 guys that had solo characters without a bunch of kids hanging around them, no posses, and they were always on time. But we all got billed with that, Image is late, it's Image's fault, which was wonderful. All the speculators were blaming us for books that they couldn't sell. And what I said was, that's like walking into a restaurant, ordering everything off of the menu, and then getting mad at the kitchen because you couldn't finish it. It's like, it's not our fault.
Or like walking up to one machine in Vegas and putting 1 nickel in and pulling and saying, I didn't make $1 million.
Yeah. How dare they? Yeah.
So Robert Kirkman, you're credited with bringing Robert into the fold. What was Robert doing before?
Before he became a partner?
Yeah, before he was a partner. Mm-hmm.
Well, he'd done several books for us. Tech Jacket. That's the one I seem to remember easily enough. But he had done several books for us, and it was during my tenure as publisher, and Robert just would not say die. If he did a book and it didn't work, he'd go, okay, I got another one. And same thing over and over again. He just refused to give. And he was working 2 shitty jobs at the time. Can I say that? He was working 2 jobs so he could pay the artists. And he learned lettering, so he didn't have to pay a letterer. But I kept on giving him a chance because I liked him, and I appreciated how tenacious he was. Mm-hmm. He was very smart in the sense that at conventions and stuff, he got to know each of us individually. That was a smart move because we all liked him.
Yeah, I think he continued that on, honestly, in the best possible way, that he continues to have the retailer breakfast, which are not actual breakfast, but at dinner at San Diego, and gives us all, some FaceTime and gets us all hyped about what he's excited about that's coming up next. So he's still doing it. Yeah.
So because that's the way Robert thinks. Anyways, what we saw was he had brought Walking Dead in, right? Which I told him zombie books don't sell, which was true. Zombie books did not sell.
Not at the beginning.
His was the outlier, and still is. It still is. There's plenty of zombie books. None of them did much of anything. That's because it wasn't a zombie book. It was a book about people. And if he would have pitched it that way, I would have said yes immediately. If he would have said it's about a father and his son living in this crazy world, and I would have went, yeah, okay, because I'm a dad and I have a son, and I get that. So, anyways, he had done Walking Dead, and it was pretty new, and then he did Invincible, right? Eric Stevenson and I looked around and said, we have every other kind of book except superhero books. The only superhero book we had was Savage Dragon, and everything else was something different. So we went out and asked a bunch of people, if they could do a superhero book for us. So we got Fire Breather by Andy Kuhn and Phil Hester, and there was a book by Keith Giffen that didn't last very long. Love you, Keith. And there was something else I can't remember. But anyways, Invincible. Robert called up and said, "Hey, could I do one of those?" We're like, "Sure." And he said, "My character is called Bulletproof." I'm like, "That's a terrible name, Robert. Come up with something different. How about Invincible?" "That's great. Love that." So anyway, so he had put out this very controversial thing, his manifesto, which got him a whole lot of enemies. Wow. People were like, who does he think he is? Well, he thinks he's a creator who's decided that he doesn't want to work for Marvel and DC. He just wants to work for himself. And he feels an Image is the best place to do that. So we started talking. We, the partners, started talking. And one of the things we realized was we needed a younger guy. We needed somebody who had come in from a different point of view than we had, who had new ideas and different ideas. And we, like I said, we all liked Robert. So it was kind of an easy call.
It's been a really good match, really. He's got, and to his credit, he did what a lot of people couldn't do that weren't Marvel and DC. Having a superhero book show up is terribly difficult on the rack that's not Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
He had the right touch to it, where it's like, okay, this is not going to be like any superheroes you're used to.
Yeah, right. Which was the right call to make.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the book that's coming out, and I'm sure that it's coming out because we're celebrating 30 years of Image. But this really awesome idea of having an official Image timeline, was this something that was driven by you?
Yes. Yeah. When I was first starting out, again, because of my age, I was very lucky in that I met and got to know a lot of the Golden Age guys. So I knew Jack Kirby, and I knew Julie Schwartz, and I knew Murphy Anderson, worked with Murphy quite a bit, and a bunch of other guys, that I knew. And almost to a man, their biggest regret was that they didn't save anything that they had done back in the Golden Age. And the reason is because, it's just comics, what's to save, which is what they thought back then. They had no idea that anybody who read those books as a kid would grow up reading them as an adult. That just was just insane. So I decided that I was going to keep everything I did. And when we formed Image, I realized that I would be the only one who would keep all the things that we did as Image, because I felt an Image was historically important. And if it blew up in our faces a year or so later, well, who cares? So I kept articles, and I kept notes, and I kept the books, and I kept the posters, and I kept all that, the Inferia and all that stuff, because I knew none of the other guys would. So as the 30th anniversary was coming up, which by the way is tomorrow, is the actual 30th anniversary of our first meeting, February 1st. Yeah.
Mind blowing.
He needs to find out that his parents are actually supportive.
Oh, wait. Why is the title?
Sorry, just people in the store talking.
Oh.
They're looking at manga.
So as we were talking, as Eric Stevenson and I were talking about it, I said, I had done it before in the Image Comics hardcover. I'd done a short timeline. And I said, I want to redo it because some of the things that I thought were important then are not so much now. And I wanted to do it across 30 years. And Eric thought it was a great idea. So I told him as punishment, he has to write the introduction, which he did.
Oh, perfect. So what things that you, when you started, thought might be the most important things to keep ended up being not so important, and which things that you thought were just kind of, I'm going to keep it just because it's an extra thing, became very important instead?
Oh, that's hard to answer. I kept as much stuff as I could, not knowing how things would shake down, because who knows, so I kept everything that I could. Right? With the timeline, there were things that were contemporary back in the day, the Image hardcover timeline. People who were working with us who it didn't work out, or blah, 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 or whatever. There's just differences. If you compare the two, there's differences. Plus, this one is longer.
At 64 pages, it's going to, I imagine, it's going to have a lot of goodies in there. I think it mentioned pictures. So is there a lot of pictures from the early days?
Oh, yeah. Let me see. Well, it's broken up into different sections. There's the, let me see. Hold on a sec. Oh, here's one.
Oh, how wonderful.
That's from 5 years ago up here in Portland.
Yeah.
For our 25th anniversary party. And it's hard to do this. That's on my left is the first one in the yellow jacket is my son Aaron, Eric Larson above us, me, Robert Kirkman, Mark Silvestri, and Rob Liefeld. But anyway,
this gathered for the expo?
Huh?
Has everyone gathered for the Image Expo?
No, everyone was here. I threw a 25th anniversary party and invited all of Portland to come to it. So those were the guys who made it, and most of the people who work in Portland came to the party. Retailers, creators, just everybody I could think of. They all got an invite, help us celebrate. So that was the way it worked. Anyways, this is the first section, and it shows stuff, the books and things and photographs and things like that. Hopefully stuff that people haven't seen a whole lot of. And then down on the sidebar, it gives the information. Who did what.
Okay,
Then,
so you're teasing it to somebody that is on the fence about, I don't know, do I need this for my collection or not? Tell everybody one thing that will hook them, that they're definitely going to need to have this book now.
It's great for training puppies. It just, you can't beat it. It's just fabulous. So go to your rescue place, rescue a puppy, and you're in, So there you go. That's
oh my gosh.
Anyway, so that's the first. The second section, Kat Salazar, our PR wonderment, she researched all the awards that Image has won in the last 30 years. And there's like 5 pages of that. Harvey Awards, whatever awards, right? So that's the second section. And then the third section is miscellaneous stuff, like not all, but a lot of the ash cans, which a lot of
Those ash
people
cans, some of them are so hard to get.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that look like photocopied onto colored.
Yeah. And then it's just a whole bunch of stuff, like statues, things like that. I'll be posting some of the pages on my Facebook page tomorrow so people can see them. Yes. Robert came in after Rob and Jim left.
You never got to hang
Long
out with
after.
them then. Oh, out of 30 years, is a particular creator you desperately wanted for image title that you could not get?
Well, there were some people who just couldn't do the image deal. They just didn't have the business acumen to do it. All they wanted to do was draw.
Copy.
And then there was some, the one guy who we all would have loved to have seen come into image was John Byrne, who hated us passionately and still does.
Why?
Jealousy. That
sucks because he would have been awesome.
He didn't think we deserved it, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because you deserve what you create, what you get. That's what you deserve. And we created it. We did it. He could have done it, during his day, but he didn't. So we did. But in his mind, we didn't deserve it. We were all a bunch of talentless hacks. So there you go.
I have to say congratulations. And you and Image have been part of my life in comic books since the beginning, because I started in comics in 1992.
Wow.
So,
I'm sorry.
Image books are sorry. I'm not. I love doing it. I wake up in the morning thinking about comic books and going to bed thinking about comic books. So.
Actually, the first time I met Jim Starlin, I told him that he and Bernie Wrightson and Barry Windsor Smith had brought me back into comics, and he reached over and said, "I'm sorry." I said, "I'm going to use that from now on," and he was like, "Yeah, go ahead. Who cares?"
Yeah. Oh, perfect. So if people wanted to follow you on social media, are you engaged in social media, and where should they follow you to get the most information?
Facebook. I only do Facebook. I can't twit. I just just too many jerks there.
I'm not any good at it either, so you and I can hang out on Facebook.
Yeah, so I go on Facebook in the morning when I'm drinking my first cups of coffee and trying to open up my eyeballs. And other than that, usually I just stay off of it and, find other things to get into trouble with. So, that's that.
Well, keep doing what you do. We love you so much for all you brought to the industry and for what you started. That is still great. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, make sure you say thank you for Mr. Valentino's time. And thank you for joining us here on The Experience. We've got another interview coming up, but make sure to tell your local comic shop to pull aside the official Image timeline for you so you don't miss it.
Support your local comic shop, please. Please. We need good retailers. We need the retailers that are left, because they're the good ones, and we need them.
And we appreciate
yeah, people want to make a big separation here, but really this is a symbiotic enterprise, and we need the fans, we need the creators, we need the retailers and the distributors, and the people who work behind the scenes whose names you don't know. We need all of them, So thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody, we're going to take a break and come right back.
Okay.
They say it, and it's true, that everything is getting faster. You're not getting any younger, and time is the single resource that you can never get back or get any more of. So why walk into your local comic shop blind when you can go in laser focused on the best books on the shelf?
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Minute to Skim It. Yeah!
Spend 1 hour with Miss Jen and Bean, and they'll give you rapid-fire reviews of all the new comics hitting stores. Spend less time shopping and more time reading.
This is Provenance of Secrets.
This is The Heathens. I read Wolverine number 17.
Minute to Skim It, every Tuesday at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, on The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales.
There's something for every imagination at your local comic shop. Visit comicshoplocator.com to find a store near you.
Welcome back to The Experience. This is Talking Shop, and I'm Jen King. I may never, ever come down from the high that I'm on right now after talking to Jim Valentino. Just full disclosure. All right, everybody. We've not stopped. We've got awesome things that are coming out very soon at local comic shops near you. And to that end, we get to talk to John Clark.
Hello.
John, oh my gosh. I've got so much to talk to you about that before we get to play things.
Okay.
You're in LA, which makes me super jealous.
Well, I have moved, so I'm on the East Coast now. Yeah, and that's why if you look around, there's a blank room. I'm in this empty room. Every time I've ever done an interview, I've never been in my office or anywhere where I create. I'm always in some weird random space, and that's like I had to do it here. So sorry about that.
So where did you move?
We moved to the East Coast, to Maryland.
Oh, Maryland. Okay. So you might actually be in the description that I said earlier of like rain or snow or gross weather.
Yes. Yeah. Snow. We just dealt with a bunch of snow.
Oh my goodness. So Maryland, does it get like huge amounts of inches and you have to go in and like clean off your sidewalk, or is it just like snows every once in a while? No big deal.
Yeah, you do still have to clean out the sidewalk, but it's not like further up north, like we're more towards the middle and not like, Boston or any of those areas.
That's much better. So what took you out of Los Angeles and brought you there?
Well, I came back to kind of help with my mom. She's a little older now, so we're kind of looking out for her and, doing what she needs right now.
That's perfect. See, family first, always.
Yeah.
So it lists you as being employed by Walt Disney, and that makes me super intrigued.
Yes. Yeah, I was formerly there. I did more office work side of things than the art side of things. So.
Well, okay. So there's a million moving parts at Disney. So what kind of office things did you get to be in charge of?
So I actually worked for the Children's Center. So basically they have a place where all the employees' kids can go if they like. And I worked in that office.
Now, see, that's perfect because then it allows them to have a safe place for their kids to be while they go help other kids have a safe place to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. Disney's always been so great at thinking of all the stuff to keep employees happy and making everything work really well.
Yeah.
What a giant company now. It's different than it's ever been.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is great. It's a great company to work for.
And then before that, the other thing I was super excited to talk to you about, the MGA Entertainment. Toys.
Yes. So I again, I worked in the office, but I worked for licensing. So we got doubles and triples of every kind of toy that they were doing at the time. So I still have a Bratz a blanket, a big like purple girly blanket that I use because it's so comfortable and wonderful. And I have it to this day, and I swear by it. I think it's wonderful.
Okay, so licensing. This always has kind of intrigued me. So is it that you are the person that if somebody wanted to make
You broke up there.
like for permission to use that?
Yeah. So what they would do is you license their characters or their, whatever it is, and then they'll make, they'll come to you and say, hey, we want to make pillows. And, you say, okay, and this is how much. And then once they start making pillows, they have to send you, like, well, here's the first look and you have to approve it. And they'll send you like 6 of them. And then they'll send you the final one and you get 6 more. And, so they're always sending, all the product, and it has to be approved, and the artists that design it, some are in-house and some are out of house. So, but it's always fun. It's an interesting place to be.
What was the weirdest ask for licensing?
I don't know about the weirdest, but I always thought it was odd, the like soaps, because they'd have the design of the characters and you unscrew like the head or the neck or weird places. Like I always thought that was kind of odd, but if the kids love it, then they love it and they're going to go take a shower and use it in the shower. So
yeah, I've often wondered about that too, but I was also one of those kids that definitely had those. I can remember those being in the bathtub. So I think we just like put the head back on it and played with it like it was an actual toy.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah, I think when I was a kid, I had those ones where you could squeeze it and it would actually come out of like the top of the head, I think.
Ooh. I don't remember having any of those. That sounds cool.
That'll be the next comic.
There you go. Yep. So what brought you to comic books?
I have always loved comics. So when I was a kid, like I loved like special effects in movies and comics, and like I always wanted to do, I knew it was going to be one of those two things. So I would always be designing like creatures or bloody arms or bloody scab wounds and things like that. And I'd always like to come up with the kind of stories that go around with those kinds of characters. And then I loved comics. Like, my brother got me into comics. He's older and he would collect all these comics, and then I'd secondhand read them, and I fell in love with them. So, and they kind of work together. And movies, I've always loved movies. So I feel like, there's that, all together, it just has all come together.
Do you remember any of what your earliest stuff was? Like even that you borrowed from your brother?
Oh yeah. It was like the 80s, like Spider-Man's. Like I always remember the one I liked the best is if you remember, like at the top of the comics in the top left corner, I remember one of the Spider-Mans for like, I don't know, 6 months. It had a picture of it was a hobgoblin, and he had a little quote. It said, "It's great, steal it." And I'm like, wow, they really got away with doing that. Like, I really like seeing that. I always thought that's such a great, kind of rebellious punk rock type of thing to do on a comic book.
Yeah, I remember recently retailers have been starting to talk about that was kind of like a part of comic books that not everybody thinks about collecting. Like those little icons that were in the top corner did change over time, and then there were some really cool looking ones out there.
Yeah.
In fact, I think one of them did it there was a game show that they said which one of these never appeared as an actual.
Oh, okay.
And probably that one would have gotten people because they would have said, "There's no way that made it through Marvel, okay?"
Yeah, and it did, which is crazy for like 6 months or however long that print run was.
I can actually tell you right now if you like.
Yeah, I've only ever seen something like that on a regular novel. That was about guerrilla marketing, and it really said in the beginning of the book, "You should steal it."
Yeah. That's
If
cool.
you're doing this right, you've stole this book.
Yeah.
And then I walked to the front of Barnes & Noble and paid for it because I was like, okay. I better offset the theft rate on this one. Maybe I should pay twice for it.
That's cool.
So have you done any other comic book work before Playthings?
Yeah, so I did a bunch of like short stuff for Greyhaven Comics. Is where I started out years ago, and then I did like a kind of a 3-issue, and then they put it together as a graphic novel for American Gothic Press. It's called Thin, and I wrote it and illustrated it and everything. It was like a black and white with kind of a couple splashes of color through it, and I was really proud of that. It won their I think it was their Silver Screen Fest for Best Graphic Novel, so they published it. Mm-hmm. And then they came to me later and they had another project and they were looking for an artist. So I did the art for that for a comic called Haick. And unfortunately, that was only digital. So I was like, I wanted it to have the printed comic. But, what can you do, So, and then I did Black Friday after that. So I feel like I'm, trying to build up, do more, and I have a couple things coming out. And I'm working on, I'm always pushing. I don't know if the people at Scout are like sick of me always sending them pitches like, how about this one? How about this one? How about this?
No. Because you're just pitching Smolky, right?
Pitching what?
You're just pitching Smolky, right? Since it's a Black Caravan.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, he always gets it first. So.
You can handle it.
Yeah.
So, Black Friday was a huge success for us. I think it would have been an even bigger success if it didn't happen to come out when it did. Just I feel bad for any project that had this kind of like hanging over it, that it didn't get the same kind of exposure it might have gotten. Or maybe it got extra exposure because people were more focused. But I don't think it hurt the sales for us for Black Friday. It was really great.
Yeah. Good. Well, good. That's great to hear. I love hearing that.
So do you prefer, is your strength for writing or art?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like I like to do the covers. I like to stay with the art. I'm very kind of hands-on. So like, when I look for an artist, there are certain things that I'm kind of looking for, and I hope they don't hate me or get mad, but I'm really like, hey, let's, I feel like it's a collaboration. That's kind of the way I've always been taught. And they can always say no or they can disagree or say, hey, you know what? Like, I think this idea is better and we can kind of work it out. But I feel like I'm very much hands-on in that kind of a process because I feel like it's not, I hope it doesn't sound pompous, but like I understand the art process. So I kind of understand, and I feel like they're not getting what I'm going for, emotionally or whatever for the story. I feel like I can kind of pinpoint it and say, and at the same time, it's interesting because I write it and then somebody else illustrates it. I also shine that finger back on myself and I'm like, man, I need to like fix a little bit of that writing. Like I need to change some of that because, I'm dropping the ball on that, and kind of bring it up a little bit.
It's got to help though to then also have a good handle on the art. So when you're writing it, you have a clearer vision for how to describe what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
On the page.
Yeah. I hope that, because that is something that I try to say, hey, let's do it this way. But, I do think that I'm open to interpretation. If they come back and like, I ask for a wide shot and they give me a close up and emotionally it feels right for the moment, then, I'm always been, my whole take on that is like, it only makes me look better. So it's like, even if I wrote a wide shot and they do a close up and everybody loves it, it's like, hey guys, yay team,
I'm sure it feels the same way for creators and their editors. It feels a little bit weird if an editor come back and say this probably needs to change for clarity.
Yeah.
And then when it happens, you're like, you know what? That's why you're an editor.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. Like, so I've worked with Sean French has edited, the Black Friday and Playthings and all that. And it's so funny because I remember like when I got him and his first round of notes, and I don't know if this is typical, but like everything he said, I was like, yes, 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 like right down the line. I was like, and I felt like I'm sure most creators are probably a little more cringy and like but I was like, everything he said is right on. Like I love every single note that he gave me. I'm gonna do it exactly like that, because it was like I could see, it needed that. It was great. I loved it. I loved it.
I can see the only reason to push back is if you know something about the story that's going forward. There's a reason why this has to be here. I can't tell you now, or I guess I could, but
Yeah. And I find that usually the notes that I have for artists are usually about like, hey, we got to see the pen, like we got to see the pen because it's important later. So like, I know you're doing a really cool shot, but it's like, I got to see that pen, and it's weird things like that. You're like those little kind of like details because they become bigger story points, and the artist doesn't quite know that yet, that oh man, 2 issues from now we need to see that pen, or whatever the case may be.
Okay, so you come from a place of happiness, both for kids' toys and for with Disney. What drew you to writing the scary stuff?
I've always loved horror is my look. I'm wearing Murder, She Wrote as a t-shirt.
Perfect.
I love it's it's what I love, and it's weird because everybody's like, why do you write that, and it's like I love it. It's like what I watch, it's what I read, it's what like I could probably teach horror history at a college somewhere because I have that knowledge of like now it's kind of become this whole thing about folk horror is kind of in now, and I've been reading and watching all these movies, and it's like because it's an area that I don't feel like I have a little bit of knowledge on, but now that it's on my radar, it's like I want to learn about that. And like before that I was way into, and my wife will tell you, like these old made for TV movies back in like the 70s, and like I would just watch every single like horror made for TV movie that I could, because it's just, I don't know, that's me, it's what I love.
So you're talking about Grizzly and Piranha and
Killer well, more like like obviously like Duel, Steven Spielberg's first one, and then you have some of the TV movies that he made before and after that, but then you have a lot of these kind of lesser known movies like I'm blanking on any of the titles right now, but they're more about like You're in the House Alone, or things like that. Like they have these great
people ones.
Yeah.
I can't do real people horror. Oh, someone says, JD says, have you seen Tourist Trap?
I've seen it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love them all. I love that stuff.
Yeah, recently I watched Archive 81.
Yes.
The Netflix thing. That it was the perfect mix of people horror and sci-fi mysticism horror that made it okay for me.
Yeah. It's very, and the other thing like about me is like I love cameras. I have a weird fascination with cameras, and a lot of my stories there's always like a camera. There's always like a video camera or a camera like somewhere in it, and so that Archive 81 was right up my alley. Like I was, just seeing the trailer, I was 100% on board with that. I'm like, anything camera, I'm in,
So pitch everybody. So there's only an ash can so far for playthings.
Yes.
Tell everybody what the good pitch is for it to get them all juiced up.
Whew, way to put me on the spot. So it's basically about there's a single mother raising her daughter, and it's her daughter's birthday, and she gets this present, and it's kind of this mysterious box that shows up, and there's this toy clown in the box, and there's something off about the clown, and it kind of descends, kind of like I feel like Black Friday, the one before, was kind of monsters and horror and a little bit of humor. It was kind of a Shaun of the Dead type of feel to it, and this one I feel is a little more. It's gonna kind of, it should be twisty and disturbing and kind of go down like that dark rabbit hole, and I'm really pushing it with this one. So we'll see. I hope people like it. I really hope people like it.
I just know Tracker is going to try to make one of those creepy dolls and sell it, and I'm going to have it, and I won't like it, and I'll have to burn it with fire when it becomes possessed.
Well, take a picture of that. Take a picture and send me that. I want to see, or videotape it. I would love it. I would love that. But yeah, just that, and the fact that Scout has that deal with Tracker, and they're making those toys, and I see those toys, and I'm like, when for playthings, I was just like, I even said to Travis, the artist, I'm like, can you even, I want that doll. Growing up, with all the kids' toys and stuff that I had, the fact that they would make a toy out of something that I've created would just be, that's top level, bucket list stuff,
I mean, it makes sense. They've made a Stabby Bunny.
Yes. Yeah.
They've made lots of action figures at this point, so why not?
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it. And if people bought it and they had it on their shelves, I mean, I would just, the best. That would be the best.
So, John, do they have a kind of a rough release date for Playthings yet?
I don't know. I'm sure they do. I'm not sure what it is yet. I can't wait to find out. Because I can't wait.
If anyone's watching, it's not because John is, uninformed or that Scout's wishy-washy. The problem is right now is trying to source specific papers for runs.
Yes.
They often are waiting for the printer to say we have paper for the run. Then they can set the print date, and then they'll tell you when it's going to be at your comic shop. So for most books now that don't already have release dates, most of them are getting pushed back anyway, but a lot of them are kind of moving dates around. It's not because any publisher is a dummy or they can't plan ahead.
Yeah.
It's a paper shortage problem for real.
Yeah. No, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't want people to think the other way.
I do. Buttery paper is what we got to wait for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, John, where should everyone follow you to find out when this is coming out, what you're working on next?
Sure. So I do post a lot of stuff on Facebook, and I also on Instagram. It's John Clark Comics on Instagram, and I usually that's the more Sometimes there's some personal stuff on Facebook, but the more professional work is on the Instagram account.
Okay, and we've got it all posted up for everybody, so you can just click those links and follow.
Yes, please.
I just want to say thank you so much, John, for coming on and hanging out with us for this half an hour, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going to be wanting to buy that book because we all like getting creeped out secretly.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
All right, everybody on The Experience, don't go anywhere, because coming on right after we're done with the show is Rex and John selling you lots of really great things straight from the offices of Dynamite. We'll see you guys later. Thank you. Bye, y'all.